My name is Chad. I'm co-owner of offbeathorror.com. Me and my wife Chelsea have been traveling the United States in search of all things supernatural, paranormal, and odd for over a decade. We sell true crime relics, haunted artifacts, and all things odd. If you wouldn't have it in your house, chances are it's already in ours. In our travels, we have met an array of interesting and captivating people. We hope to highlight those individuals in this show. On this episode of Offbeat True Crime and Paranormal, we head to Atlanta, Georgia to speak with crime scene investigator and Law Enforcement Hall of Fame inductee Sheryl McCollum. She has an impressive background, and I really mean it. Don't believe me? Then Google that shit. We're honored to even have the opportunity to sit in a room with her. She talks about a case she helped solve with the participation of serial killer Carl Patton. Carl's daughter was murdered and dismembered, and the case went cold for 20 plus years until Cheryl stepped in. Yep, she's a badass, and this is her story. Sounds going. And you ready? Look good?
I literally do not have a memory where I was not fascinated with crime. Like, I remember being fascinated with crime way before school, way before my first pet, anything like that.
Like, what got you into law enforcement?
That wasn't my first choice. When I was 4, we were headed to Florida, and my mother was a fantastic storyteller. I mean, she could grab you with just 2 words, and you were sucked in. So when you would get outside of Atlanta, about 100 miles, the radio stations would stop working. And so you wouldn't have a radio. Back then, you know, there was nothing in the car but you, right? There was no phones or anything. So she would tell us these unbelievable stories. Well, this particular time, we're driving, and she starts telling us the story of Bonnie and Clyde. And she told us they were madly in love, and they crisscrossed the country, and they robbed banks. So then they had all this money, and they would have these, you know, fabulous vacations. And she said, you know, they even went to Daytona Beach, which is where we were headed. And I was like, that is awesome. Well, there were 5 girls in our family, and I was like, this sounds like a plan. Like, why are we not doing that? Like, you pull into a bank, you rob it, and you go to the beach. That sounds fabulous to me. So I didn't understand why my parents didn't rob banks. You know, like, why don't we all have bicycles? Like, if y'all would get with the program, you know, we would have tons of money. And so she didn't tell me, of course, about the death car. She didn't tell me the ending. She just told us the fun stuff. And then she would tell us about John Dillinger making a gun out of soap and, you know, fooling everybody and pretending it was a movie set, and the woman screaming was a great actress. I thought it was brilliant. So when I was super young, I thought, man, being like an international jewel thief just sounded like the greatest job. Like, you go to these beautiful places, right? And I just like, you can go to Monaco, steal something from the princess, and head out. That just sounded like, why don't we not all want to do that? But then, of course, somewhere along about 12 years old, it started to shift a little. And then, to their credit, my parents would take me places. So when I was 8, they took me to see the death car, and I didn't know anything about trajectory. I didn't know anything scientific. What I did know, as a little bitty girl, there was nowhere I could sit in that car. There weren't bullet holes everywhere. And so at the time, I was like, this was awful. Like, they didn't have to do them like that, because I knew them first, right? I didn't know about boots hitting in them till later. So I thought it was a little, you know, overkill. It bothered me, even as a little kid. Well, then when I was 10, they took me to Alcatraz. And then when I was 11, they took me to the FBI building. And the agent there let me pick any gun on the table. Well, I knew what a Gatling gun was, so that's the first one I picked. And then, of course, I picked a Tommy gun. And then he shot this target, and I have that target today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Real gun.
Oh, yeah. And they had all these guns. Oh, yeah. Wow. And they had crime scene markers, basically. And they just said, give me a number. Well, I knew those 2 guns, and those are the 2 numbers I gave.
Wow. Yeah, they ain't doing that today.
No. I literally do not have a memory where I was not fascinated with crime. Like, I remember being fascinated with crime way before school, way before my first pet, anything like that. It was Bonnie and Clyde and John Dillinger and Al Capone. And what's crazy is, again, going to the source. I made friends with a gentleman, Robert Shablin, and Robert was an inmate at Alcatraz. And to hear his stories, we sat one afternoon for probably most of the day. And, he told me about the Birdman. He told me all the stories about having dinner with the folks that escaped, the Anglin brothers, and that he was directly involved in that escape, and that he had been in the Navy. And so this one guard would get the paper every day, and in the paper were the times tables. So he told them on what side of the island and on what day and what time they needed to go to hit that current to actually get pushed toward Angel Island. And I'll tell you something, when Robert died, he wanted to have his funeral on Alcatraz.
Really?
And he wanted to be cremated, and he wanted to escape that island one last time. And so the family asked us to come, so we actually got to go to a funeral on Alcatraz.
Oh my
and
God.
Speak. So again, when people say, is it frowned upon that you make friends with people? People are people. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's the luck of the draw. You get good parents, you get bad parents. You have a drug addiction or you don't. You have somebody abuse you and other people don't. And a lot of times people make decisions not because they're a bad person, but maybe they're desperate or sick or hurt and they don't know how else to do it. Sheryl McCollum, SHERYLMCCOLLUM. I'm a crime scene investigator with the Hateville Police Department, and I'm the director of the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute, which is how we got involved with Melissa's case. And then, ironically, I'm on the Cold Case Task Force with the Fulton County DA's office, which actually has her case now. I was doing an event, which we call Wine and Crime, and it's our biggest fundraiser for the Cold Case Institute, where I take an actual murder box and let the general public help me solve a case. So I was in the middle of one of those events, literally standing on stage speaking, and this was kind of a fancy restaurant, so everybody was pretty much dressed up. Out of my peripheral, I saw a woman walk in Bermuda shorts, like a tank top and a straw hat, like she had been at the beach. And she was holding an 8x10 frame. And I just knew, that's somebody's mama. So when I was done, I walked right to her, and she said, "This is my daughter. She was beheaded in Atlanta. Will you help me?" There's no way to say no. And I said, "Absolutely, we'll help you. Can you come to my office next week and we'll talk about it? Because here, there's people all around and, it's not really the best place." Sure. So she comes to my office the very next week, and she has these 2 binders with her that are packed. And so she sits down, and when she had first shown me the photograph, I thought, why do I not know this case? Beheadings are unusual, and especially for Caucasian females, it seems like I would have heard of this case. Never heard of it. So instinctively, when she sat down and put the binders down, I went to reach for one because I was dying to get in this thing. And she put her hands on both of them and said, "I've got to tell you something first." And I said, "Okay." She said, "I know you've already agreed to help me, but you need to know my husband is in prison for murder, and I helped him."
Wow.
That ain't every day. So, using humor, I said, "Well, just remind me not to make you mad." So of course she laughed, and then she starts to tell me this story that her husband murdered several people in the 70s, and that he was put in prison for that. It had nothing to do with Melissa. That was a completely separate event, which made sense to me because Melissa's event was 25 years later. So it's not like somebody would wait that long for any type of retribution. It didn't make any sense that somebody would wait that long to set him up about something. So the timing to me, checked as far as that was concerned. And as I got into the case pretty good, she kept talking, and finally I went, "Wait a minute. Are you telling me your husband is the Flint River killer?" And she said, "Yes."
Melissa's father, the serial killer, was never considered a suspect, and police aren't saying what it was that led them to charge his son-in-law after all this time. But I am joined now exclusively by Norma Patton, Melissa Wolfenbarger's mother. Norma, thank you so much for being on with me. How did they finally make the link? Do you know anything about the connection to ultimately and finally arresting Melissa's husband, Christopher?
And I said, okay, we got to go to work because I think I know a way to do it. And Carl Patton has got to be a part of this, because how often are you going to have an expert, so to speak, in murder help you on a murder case? So when it came to victimology, Carl was clearly somebody I needed to talk to. He knew his child. He knew her background. So did her mama, but having both parents, right, they see the child differently sometimes. Does that make sense to you? I wanted his version of who she was married to versus her mama. Then, the more I got into it, there wasn't just somebody that I narrowed down. There was only one suspect. Melissa Wolfenbarger married her high school sweetheart. Never any evidence of an affair. She had 2 small children that took up all of her time when she wasn't working. She didn't have girlfriends. She didn't have a social circle that they went to dinner parties or anything like that. Her whole world were her 2 children at the time that were 1 and 3. A lot of times a killer will say, well, my wife ran off. A wife might leave you. Not going to leave her children. She's not. Right? We can get another man. What time is it? But we can't get children. We can't. We're not going to leave them. And they were the greatest thing to her. They were the best thing she ever did. She didn't work all the time. When she did, she worked at Waffle House. She was arrested for shoplifting. She was arrested for fighting. He would sometimes call the police on her. So you have a pattern of emotional abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse at the hands of Christopher Wolfenbarger. There's a lot of marriages that ain't great, but the man doesn't call the police on the woman. So when that happens, that to me is evidence. Clear evidence that he's trying to play those children, to say, I'll take them if you leave me. You've gone to jail. You're an unfit mother. I can prove it. You'll never see the kids again. That's one of those abusive things where they try to control her with the children. So when he says she left and went to California, part of the victimology, sometimes people say, well, it was rude when you said so-and-so was blank. It's not rude. It's a fact. And facts to me are critical. So when I tell you she was poor, it goes into the victimology so that when I say to you, there ain't no way, 1, she could get to California, and 2, could not financially survive out there. Like, it's crazy expensive there. Didn't happen. And again, she would not have left her children. Then he says, well, she left because she was going to start a business making fake IDs and things for people. So now you're telling us this woman who is missing, the mother of your children, is a criminal. That's just more evidence to me of what he's about, if that makes sense. So he has changed his story. He has, said that he was the last one legitimately to see her alive. That's a problem. He never reported her missing. He didn't pick her body up to take it to somewhere to get it, embalmed so that they could bury her. He lied to the children about what happened to her. Even after he found out she didn't run off, that she was actually murdered, and murdered in such a horrible manner, he never went to law enforcement and said, hey, wait a minute, am I safe? Are the children safe? Like, who would have done this? Her dad's a criminal. Is this somebody coming after all of us? That never happened.
Was there ever any motive that was uncovered in the investigation?
I don't know if it was motive. I'll tell you what I personally believe. Again, it was a volatile deal. I mean, they would fight physically. Mm-hmm. I don't think he meant to kill her. I think he had probably choked her a couple times, and I think this time he strangled her a little too long. I think that's what happened, and I think he panicked. And I don't think he knew how to get her out of that house, so he chopped her up, put her in bags so that he could transport her to a place that he knew to put her. You can hear the train.
Yeah.
So on the back side of these woods are train tracks. And the reason that's significant is because you're not going to have anybody coming from that way.
Right.
And when it comes to hiding evidence, you know what I mean?
Was there ever an investigation done at their home, their old home?
Yes.
Not anything, nothing?
They utilized subliminal, and I think there was a few areas that it showed up, but it would. I mean, just general living. But the house has since been torn down. The other thing that kind of leads you to think something happened, because as soon as all of this went down, he fled and went to a town called Dublin, Georgia, which is south, and lived with a woman who already had a home. So nothing had to be in his name, not a light bill, nothing. And he was living under an assumed name.
That tells you everything.
I was like, what about him is not?
So here's the deal.
God.
You're married to this woman that you have loved since high school. You have 2 children together. She disappears. You flee and are living under an assumed name. You know she's not coming back, because if she did show back up, you're gone and no way to find you. If you're a decent person, you want the children to have access to their mama. She wasn't a drug addict. She wasn't abusive to the children. Right. She loved them. They remember her singing and playing, and they were literally her entire world. Her family, yes, they kept saying, hey y'all, there's a problem here, but let's get real. They knew who Carl Patton was. They knew what he was about. There were rumors that he was connected to the Dixie Mafia. There were rumors that he had, committed these crimes. And then eventually he was arrested for those right about the time Melissa was identified. So again, that was probably in play a little bit, but the reality is they had no evidence she was missing. There was no evidence she had been murdered. They thought the skull belonged to a white guy. So this is Avon Avenue in Hartford. A UPS driver was coming down, and right in the middle of the road was a ripped black trash bag and a skull sitting straight up right there at that manhole cover.
Oh my God.
They take the skull and get it identified by scientists at the University of Tennessee, and it comes back a Caucasian male. She was not even on their radar. Atlanta knew nothing about her. So it wasn't like lazy police work. They didn't care. They didn't know she was in play. They never heard her name. Yeah. This killer had the perfect storm laid out. Wow. She wasn't found for a long time. She was only found because of a canine. Then misidentified. Could you have better luck than that? And here's the other thing. Her mama was watching the news the day they talked about a skull being found. There's another Avon Avenue off of 285. And her mama thought, well, that can't be Melissa. It's nowhere near her home or anything. So she was like, praise the Lord. And then when it came out to be a Caucasian male, she completely accepted it. Had she realized, if they had said the skull was found in front of Action Glass, that would have been a whole different ballgame. She would have lost her mind to tell people what happened. What was insane was that's all they had, and that was April. In June, they come back out right down Hartford, just not even a block. They find 4 more trash bags, and in each trash bag contained an arm or a leg. Well, they assumed, obviously, it matched the skull, so they did no more testing. They put all the remains together, and basically it was on a shelf, because at that time they had no missing Caucasian males. And the report's in that file. I'll show it to you.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. What about the arrest and conviction with a guy that came 25 years later? At any point did he make a confession?
Oh no, he has not confessed. He said he didn't do it.
But he is in custody.
He's in custody.
Charged with the crime.
Right. He was arrested for murder last August and has been in jail ever since. He originally got no bond. He has asked for bond 3 separate times and has been denied.
On August 6th, yesterday, we took into custody Christopher Wolfenbarger, and he was charged with the murder of Melissa Wolfenbarger.
Over 20 years,
has passed, and finally an arrest has been made in the murder of Melissa Wolfenbarger, who is the daughter of a convicted serial killer, the infamous Flint River Killer, as her husband is now facing charges connected to her death. So the victim here, she's the daughter of that famous serial killer. She disappeared back in 1998. Her remains, including her severed head, were found in trash bags in 1999.
But right where that house is, when it was not there, that's where they just piled all kind of trash and junk.
That's where they found the arms.
The arms and legs, So the dog had, drug it just right there.
But her remains weren't even identified until 2003, so for decades this case went unsolved. Her husband, Christopher Wolfenbarger, claimed that she left on her own accord and just never returned. Well, now he's been indicted by a grand jury in Georgia this week on charges connected to her death.
This judge wasn't buying it.
For him. In the case of the Pattons, did anything ever happen to the wife as far as her saying she was involved?
So when he was arrested, they had already kind of worked out that if they ever show up, you're going to make an offer. You turn state's evidence, and I'm going to admit it. So what Carl did, he walks into all the different counties. So it's Clayton, Henry, DeKalb, and Fayette. And he walked in and admitted to every murder. To the point, when they were all done, the last one, they were all packing up, all shaking hands, all leaving. And Carl goes, well, do y'all want to know about the fifth one? And everybody's like, what? What did he say? And the judge is like, are y'all freaking kidding me? And Carl's like, well,
What?
I'll let you know about it if you want to know about it.
Oh my God.
So
She's turned state witness.
yeah, and that was their plan. Norma, their loyalty for each other is off the charts. And I've had reporters ask me, well, was it hard on her after the divorce? And I'm like, what divorce? They are married till the end, and they were married up until Carl died a few weeks ago. She would drive 3 hours, visit with him 3 hours, and drive home 3 hours. Every Sunday.
Did you ever have a chance to sit in person and talk?
The Georgia Department of Corrections denied me.
Wow.
But now that he's gone, I can tell you, we did write to each other, and you're happy to go through any of those letters that you would like to. And there's my Bonnie and Clyde brick.
Oh my goodness.
How did you acquire that?
There's a dude that has the Bonnie and Clyde Museum, Perry Carver, and Perry gave it to me and gave me that.
Wow.
We're buddies too.
See, when Cheryl has bricks of stuff, it's normal, but when we have bricks of stuff, it's weird.
No, people think I'm weird too, but
Well, can you explain some of this?
all these composites are done by two people, Marla and Kelly Lawson. And Marla was the forensic composite artist for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and then her daughter Kelly took over. So that's what Kelly does now for the GBI. And she does these for me as a keepsake of the cases that we solve. And these are some of the folks that...
Is this Norma?
That's Norma.
Oh my goodness.
These are some of the people that help solve it. So,
Wow. That's
You know.
cool. And these are your correspondence?
yes, that's my correspondence with Carl. But I just wanted to show you a couple. Like that's Nancy Grace. That's Detective Shepard, who actually arrested Christopher.
Takes a village.
Cool.
Yep.
That's amazing. We
Yep.
got him. I love
So,
it.
What's the most interesting thing he ever sent you?
I'll tell you just what jumped in my head. I don't know if it's the most interesting to anybody. But he sent me, because he wanted me to have it, is the last letter that he sent to Norma. So that touched me, And you're welcome to take it out and look at it. But he was always one, he didn't want to end a letter. So you always have, XXO, love you. But then he's got to write a little more. He's got to draw a little more. He's got to talk a little more. Because, he loved her. And this was September the 1st. He died shortly.
Yeah.
Shortly after that. I'll take it out if you want to get the whole letter. I think it would mean a lot to Norma that y'all want to see it.
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness.
And in this letter, he talks about what they're going to do when he gets home. And he said, Sunday is for church, the other 6 days are for whatever we want to do. And occasionally, Carl, being who he was, would have access to a cell phone, so we got to speak often. And it was probably about a year into our relationship. I never thought about it. And he calls me one day and he goes, hey, I saw you on Channel 5. Now I know what you look like. He didn't even know what I looked like. And that had never really dawned on me. But Carl was funny. The hardest he ever made me laugh, I'll tell y'all this story. We were writing back and forth, and one day he called me and I said, Carl, I think we're so close. I think we are so close to an arrest. He said, well, I just hope that I live long enough to see him in handcuffs. And I said, well, I think that's going to happen. And I said, wouldn't it be something if he was sent to Dodge State, where you are? He goes, well, now, he goes, I promised Norma I wouldn't kill nobody else. And I just thought, that is the greatest thing I've ever heard. I get it, because he, of course, would want to get his hands on him. And I said, it might even be enough if he just thought he was going to your same prison. That might be enough punishment right there.
Is it looked down upon, like in law enforcement, eating on the fact that you were corresponding and creating a friendship with someone who...
Here's the way I look at it. When you see movies like Catch Me If You Can, everybody thinks, oh man, Abigail, of course he would train the FBI. Who better? You've got people like the Mafia. We did not understand how the Mafia operated until somebody like Sammy the Bull turns. And now you're like, they've got lieutenants? We didn't know that before. Sometimes, you got to go to the source. And I'm that person. When I worked the Morris Ford Bridge, for example, I contacted Johnny Lee Clary, who was the ex-Imperial Wizard of the Klan. I've never joined the Klan. I don't know if that's a Klan hit. He does. When I worked Tupac Shakur, again, I've never been a hit man. That didn't look like an organized hit to me, but I wanted to talk to somebody who had done that. And so I contacted Frank Collada. We became friends. So Frank had information, Frank had understanding, Frank had experience. He's like, absolutely, that was not an organized hit.
Forming a relationship, it's kind of a tit for tat. Forming a relationship with somebody in law enforcement might be just as beneficial to them. Scratch your back.
It could be, but for him, it could also be very dangerous. A lot of people have asked me, was he doing this to get parole? Y'all, he was never going to get parole. Right. Once you have a moniker, you're there. I'm just going to tell you, right? And the other deal with him, he would probably, get more crap that he was having a conversation with me, that he was stealing a phone or commandeering one in some way to call me. But legitimately, here's what began to happen between Carl and I. In the beginning, obviously, I'm writing an inmate. I don't know if I trust you or not, but what happened to your daughter was horrible. And if I can help in some way, whether it's you or somebody else, I'm going to do it. And this is the reason. There is a person walking this earth that chopped up another person. That should not be okay. And whoever helps me get that person off the street, good. Because that person is pumping gas next to my daughter. Right. That person might be working at the golf course where my son is playing. That person may be cleaning the daycare where your children are. That's not okay. Mm-hmm. It's not. That's not somebody that from a distance shot somebody.
Right.
Okay, so this is a whole different level. This is less than 1% of all the murders you're ever going to hear about. So I think we all collectively should want something to be done for the safety of everybody. So here's the deal. At first, we did that little dance. We're going to be real polite, Mr. Patton, I appreciate you taking the time to write to me. Oh, Miss McCollum, your background speaks for itself, whatever. But then we get into who we are. And in those letters, you'll see where he says, Miss Cheryl, right, point. That's right, your friend Carl.
You can see some of the evolution.
You can.
He addresses you.
Agreed. And what happens in those letters, you will see him where he says, look, I was just a dumb kid. I was in my 20s when I murdered those people. And he will tell you, I did not know what I was doing to their family until Melissa was murdered. And then he felt it. He felt murder on a different level. That changed him. So there are people that can say to me, oh, he's just going to church because of this. He's just writing you because of that. I can do nothing to help him. He's never getting out. It wouldn't matter if the Pope wrote on his behalf. So I'm just telling you, I take it for what it absolutely is. This is a father whose daughter was murdered, and the sins of the father have nothing to do with Melissa. She deserved justice, and that's what we try to do.
Christopher Wolfenbarger. He's going to stay behind bars as his trial continues to play out in the death of his wife, Melissa, as you pointed out. Now, he's accused of killing his wife in the late 1990s, as we first told you about Melissa's story as part of 11 Lies More Than a Number series, which seeks to humanize news coverage by giving a face to the crime victims and a voice to their families as well. Melissa was last seen in 1998. Her remains were found just scattered less than a mile from her home a few months later. They were finally identified in 2003.
All the details about the murders he committed, but
Did I ask him? Lord, I couldn't wait to ask him. So the first person he killed is somebody that beat his aunt nearly to death. So Carl is one of those men. I have a few in my family. I know y'all have them. I know he has them because one of his is my father-in-law. There are people that will say, if anybody hurts my daughter, I'll kill them. But they don't mean it. They want to mean it, but they don't mean it. Carl Patton meant it. Every person that Carl Patton murdered, Carl believed deserved it. That's what he believed. Now again, he had friends that were Dixie Mafia. He hung out with criminals. He was a criminal. He lived by a different code. There's no question. So 2 of the people that he killed were completely innocent people. They showed up at the wrong time. They were collateral damage. But again, to Carl, you were going to be able to tell that I did this. So when you showed up, I didn't have a choice but to kill you too.
everyone's looking for love. Some people find it in the wrong places.
That's right.
Sure.
Lord knows I did.
Yeah.
Don't cut that.
Me too.
But y'all are great partners to me in this thing. Like, y'all have an audience that I would not have access to.
Right.
Right? And to me, if they go, hey, I want to see those letters. I want to understand who all helped on that case. I want to understand, was there something we could have done?
Right.
Then to me, that's how you get these cases in the solve column.
That's the conversation we were having on the way here was, I don't understand why there's not more of a crossover of people in the true crime and the law enforcement community.
I think you said it earlier.
We cannot do this without each other. Without you, there's no resolution, there's no learning, there's nothing to put out into the future for people to understand who, what, where, why, how, when.
But let me tell you an extraordinary thing, and I want everybody to understand this part. In an odd way, yes, Carl and I became friends, sure. But I also became friends with the children of Lydia Evans, one of his victims. And let me tell you about them. 5 children who lost their mama, okay? Totally put their life on a different track immediately. She was loving and kind and caring and would give you the shirt off her back. And Carl Patton killed her. To their credit, not one of them, but when I reached out to all 5 of them, they basically said the same thing, and this is what they said to me. I don't care what happens to Carl Patton. He deserves to go to hell, but his daughter didn't deserve that. And if we can help, we'll do that. So all of this, what you're saying, is an education that we have to have. So again, me contacting Carl or Robert or any of them, it gives me an education I could not get anywhere else in order to put these cases where I think they need to be. I think I'm the only mama that I know personally that never told their children there's no such thing as a boogeyman. Absolutely there is. There are monsters walking right now.
Yeah. Far worse than anything.
And I need them to know that.
Yeah.
So if they get that gut feeling, like that guy makes me feel weird, go with that.
So everything you just saw was all done by me and my wife. We self-fund it, we direct it. Everything we didn't know how to do, we've learned how to do over the last couple years. We only survive by people like you telling other people about our show. If you watch this video, like what we do, and you want to help and support, there are many ways you can do that. One is by telling your friends about the show, watching the show. Two is by going to offbeathorror.com. Feel free to purchase something from us, whether it be a human bone or true crime relic or anything like that. All those things really, really help. Or maybe you want to be a producer on the show and get credits on IMDb and wherever else the show is released. You can absolutely do that. Just go to offbeathorror.com, reach out to one of us directly. We'd love to have you. Until next time.